Hi, and welcome to Mark's Motivational Podcast for this Motivational Thursday. Today, I'm delighted to be joined with two great guests, Fintan and Rich, and myself too. We're going to be part of this, doing a course on NLP, fundamentals in all the areas of NLP as well. So, welcome, lads. Thanks a lot for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Mark, for having us.
Yeah, thanks for the invite, Mark. Really appreciate coming back on again.
No, great to have you back on, Rich. Great to have you back on, and yourself, Fintan. So, Fintan, before we go ahead, you might just give a bit of a background how you got interested in NLP and hypnosis as well.
Right. Well, I suppose my main thing is NLP, and I've been interested in it for a long time. I first came across it. I read a book by Anthony Robbins called Personal Power, and there was a reference made to it there about NLP. I learned a couple of things in that, like dissociation and switch pattern, things like that. And I found them very useful myself, and I used them, and I helped other people get through things by using them as well. So then I was there last year. I had a book called Transformation by Richard Bandler, and I was reading through it. And to be honest, I wasn't really understanding it as well as I could. And I thought, I'd really like to do an NLP course. It was during lockdown, and I thought, this is the time to brush up on my skills. So I contacted Orlando Zucchetto, and we had a chat, and he agreed to take me on, which is very kind of him. I hope he hasn't regretted it since, but no, seriously. So of course, then I joined this Thursday meetup group, and I've been a regular now on that ever since, and loving it every week. And so that's where I came from. I wanted to make some changes in my life, and the time was right, and the opportunity was there, and I just took it on. So I have to say now it's been absolutely brilliant with me. It's helped me an awful lot. And now I found that I can use it to help other people. And in fact, everybody around me is probably sick of listening to me, explaining to them about different aspects of NLP and how it can help them and how it can help them change their lives and that sort of thing. But overall, I think people are generally accepting of it and are delighted that there's something there to help them, you know.
Yeah, that's great, Fintan, and I'd agree with you 100%. Orlando's course, Orlando Zucchetto, he provides a brilliant course in hypnotic fusion. That's a course that's how you and I met, Fintan. So that's great. That's a great introduction. Great start. Thanks very much. Yeah, and Rich as well. How did you get interested in the subject yourself? I know you were on the podcast before. I kind of explained it before, but just for anybody that didn't hear the last one, you might just give it a bit of a introduction how you got involved in it.
Yeah, a bit similar to Fintan in some ways. Back in about 2007-ish, I think, come across this thing called NLP. What the hell was that? And it was then in a big folder, A4 folder with a load of CDs in it. I was listening to that going, this is a bit too weird and a bit too bizarre for me. And also the guy I was working with, he said this load of crap, so I kind of put it to one side. And as I say, along lines of Fintan, I needed to make some changes in my life. And something back in my head was, seen adverts this NLP. Back in my head, it was saying, go and have a relook at this, go and have a look at it, and go in. So I went off and done the NLP practitioner course under Richard Bandler and that team of people, and just done various other courses along with John Grinder. So I've done both the classic code and the new code NLP, and various other courses as well now to improve my skills and to help other people.
Yeah, and that's great, Rich. Thanks very much. And you've done it in person, the practitioner, didn't you? You done the NLP practitioner in person, because I had that experience myself. Doing with Danielle Serpico, I done the NLP practitioner, which was really good because I've done the stuff online, but I think it's great to be able to do it in person as well, because you get to practice with other people. Yeah, it's great. Yeah. No, thanks very much, Rich. That's brilliant. So today we're also going to be discussing the various areas in NLP. It's ego states. There's another terminology for it as well, for ego states.
Parts.
Parts, yeah, parts.
Parts, yeah.
Yeah, great. So yeah, so who wants to go first on explaining to the listeners what the parts therapy or ego states is, please?
So if I give a bit of a background, if you wish to, Mark.
Yeah, great. Yeah.
So NLP came about through the modelling of three therapists: Fritz Perls, Milton H. Erickson, and Virginia Satir. And Virginia Satir, she was an exceptional family therapist. What she would do, she'd get a whole family in, and she would work out who was not functioning as well as they could in that family unit, and she'd realign them by asking various questions. And through Richard Bandler chauffeuring her around and being sat into some of the sessions, I'd imagine as well, he managed to get the modelling process of how she was talking and dealing with all of these families to make them more functional and more useful in society and to themselves and to other people. So she'd make a whole functioning unit. So this whole parts therapy really kind of developed from her, how she would work with our family units.
Oh yeah, great stuff. And then because Virginia Satir done that, then Richard Bandler, not copied it, but kind of made NLP from that, really, didn't he? Like from like you say, from Milton Erickson and Virginia Satir and all that. Was that right? Yeah.
Yeah. As you say, Mark, he did copy it because he modelled what she was saying and how, roughly how she was saying to these families and these people to get them functioning better, get them to be more accepting of other people's faults and failings, because we all do have them, and we need to be more accepting of other people in our lives, really.
Yeah, no, that's very well explained. Thanks for that, Rich. Brilliant. And how about yourself, Fintan? What way do you find the ego states or the parts really helpful to work with?
Well, I suppose I came across ego states, which is the same thing really, through a guy called Mike Mandel, and I came across it first of all in one of his podcasts, and then I did his masterclass in it, and I just found it so useful. As soon as I heard about it, I thought, this is something I could really use. This is definitely something I need. So so I was absolutely delighted to have done the masterclass and to put it into practice myself. So just kind of give you an idea of how it works for him, is that what he suggests is that if you can imagine a bungalow, and there's just a front door on it, and what you do then is you so upstairs or in this bungalow there's the first floor, and then below it then there's another floor, but it's not like a basement like we would think, but it's more like in America to have a rec room, so there's like a sofa and a fireplace and maybe a pool table there, nice relaxing place to be. So upstairs we have 5 to 15 ego states, and the idea is these are the ones that we use every day. We use the same states more or less from the time we get up in the morning to the time we go to bed at night. And now, of course, the thing about this is I'm not suggesting for a moment that there's all these little fellas running around in our heads or anything like that, or that we have all these but basically this is just a model. And the idea, as John Grinder himself said, the usefulness of a model or the value of a model is in its usefulness. So what we're saying is, if you use this model and it works, then that's brilliant. It doesn't mean that it's real or anything else like that. So just so that you understand that. Now, as I was saying to you, so there's 5 to 15 ego states that we use on a daily basis. And the idea then is that if somebody knocks on the door of this bungalow, or some approaches you, the ego state that is in the executive is the one that opens the door. So that's the one that greets them. So for example, if you're working in sales, and somebody you call up into a customer, you want to have your salesman in the executive. You don't want to have your sleepy person who's sitting watching TV in front of the fire in the executive. So you need to get that sort of quickly enough. Just briefly as well, downstairs in the rec room, there's around up to 150 ego states that we rarely use. Sometimes they come up, sometimes maybe in an emergency situation or in a very unusual situation. One from the rec room might come up. And the other one then is downstairs as well, beside the rec room, is what they call a bomb shelter. And this is where all the wounded ego states are. And these are usually, a lot of these ego states we would have collected or would have been created in our childhood. And we didn't deal with them properly, and we don't even realize that they're there. And sometimes what happens is when we have dysfunctional behavior, for example, people who drink too much or take drugs or whatever, or act out in any other way, what can happen there is that that's caused by a wounded ego state trying to get the executive, and this behavior stops them. So therefore, the wounded ego state is never dealt with properly, because what we're doing is we're covering up for it through this behavior. Now, as regards I suppose, all of the ego states, what is very useful is to be able to figure out what ego state that we want to use ourselves at any given moment. Sorry. And to be able to control that to a certain extent is very useful. And that's really why I got interested in this, because I thought, well, there's times when I want to get up and do some work, or I want to go for a walk, go for a run, do some exercise, whatever it might be. And of course, the wrong ego state is in the executive. And so what I've managed to do now is in the mornings now when I'm doing my meditation, so basically from the start of the day, I set my state and I talk to my ego states. And what I do is normally I can call my highest wisdom ego state. And what that is basically is, if, as an example, would be, say, for example, you have a classroom and the teacher leaves the classroom for a moment, and all the kids get up and they're messing, running around and all that sort of stuff. And one of them sits down in the teacher's chair. So that kid is now in the executive. So when the teacher comes back in, suddenly all the kids scarper. They all run back to their seats. And next thing, everybody's quiet. And the whole place calms down. And the teacher then just says, okay, take out your books, start reading on this page, whatever the case might be. And everyone is calm. And everyone listens to the teacher, and everybody just does what they're supposed to do. And that's what your highest wisdom ego state is, the one that all of the other ego states just listen to. And the one that just knows what's going on, what needs to be done. And what I do is I talk to that ego state. And whenever you're talking to any ego state, it's good to speak in a respectful way, and to accept that the ego state is trying to do you some good, right? So, for example, if you're there and you're feeling overwhelmed about a particular job that has to be done, you think of a job, you feel overwhelmed. What happens then is you go, okay, so well, that was happening to me. I would think, oh, I have to do such a job. I would go, oh, I really don't want to do it. I felt full of dread. And then I said, well, okay, why are you in the executive? What are you trying to do? And what happens is your voice comes back to you, your thoughts come back to you straight away. And that's usually the answer. And I was saying, well, I'm trying to protect you from failing at this particular job, you know? I go, well, have I done this job before? And the answer, of course, is yes. And have I done it well before, or what the story is? And of course, the answer was yes. So then as soon as I realized that, the ego state sort of melted away, and it became much easier then to do that job, you know, a much more useful ego state came into the executive then, and I was able to do the job, and it was no problem at all. But once I was able to change my state, So what I do now is in the morning, I talk to my highest wisdom ego state, and I decide, well, what is it that I want to do for now? So for example, if I want to do some work, I obviously want my focused ego state to come into play. Or if I want to go out for a walk or a run or go and play football or whatever the case might be, then my active ego state has to come in into play. And that way then it enables me. So those two things alone are absolutely, they change so much for me. The ability to talk to the ego state, ask it why it's doing what it's doing, means now that even if it's a positive ego state, I can talk to it and find out what is it doing for me. And what I found then was I created a role of a general manager ego state and a timekeeper ego state. And what I did then was I got the two of them to work together. And what they do then is now the general manager and the timekeeper are the one ego state. And it means then that now I'm there and going, okay, so at 11:30, I want to do this particular thing. So that means I need to change the state. And then I suddenly find myself now looking at my watch and going, oh, it's 11:30. And it's time to do this other thing. And it's so much easier now. Whereas before I'd have to drag myself from one state to another, and sometimes I wouldn't always succeed, So anyway, that's what I found very useful about ego states myself. So I hope that kind of explains it a bit to you anyway, Mark.
No, that's really useful, Fintan, for anybody that's listening. Thanks very much for that, because like yourself, I've only really started using them myself, and I find it great even for the likes of doing this podcast, like mentioned before, to ask the library ego state to come, like through the executive, which Rich explained how to do that with us. So I've been using. I find that really much more effective, and as well as that, the confident ego state, to come to the fort as well through the executive. It's just great, like for anybody to use that's listening. The effects are great, aren't they?
Yeah, very much so, Mark.
Yeah. Because no, it's great. Yeah, and because I found getting back to your point as well about Mike Mandel. That's a really good podcast. Maybe to check out as well. It's Brain Software, isn't it?
Correct.
Yeah, it's really good as well. To give them a bit of a plug as well. Yeah.
He probably doesn't need it.
No, doubt it. No, definitely not. He should be giving us a plug.
Absolutely.
You might, yes.
Yeah, you never know. Yeah. No, but yeah, that's great. So, is there anything else, which you can think of, that you can use ego states for? Because it's a great point that Fintan made, isn't it? About for when you're doing a bit of exercise or going for a run, to ask your healthy ego state to come to the fore, or you want to eat healthier,
Yeah, well, if you're going off doing some exercise, you don't need a lethargic ego state to be in that executive position. Otherwise, you're probably not doing your best run or your best deadlift, whatever it is you're kind of doing. But it's really good to name them, as in, like, so you'd have a ego state for your sport, you'd have one for your library, so you call them a functional name. You'd avoid calling them, say, Lucy, Colin, Trevor. Otherwise, you could end up in a schizophrenic condition. That's not very useful to anybody at all. So just if you do use these ego states, you do name them. Give it a functional name and not a person's name.
Yeah, because I found it really funny as well. Now that's great. That's great, Rich. Thanks very much. Because when Mike Mandel, I think it was saying about when he was trying to use an ego state for, let's say, studying or whatever it is, like he couldn't use the one where he's relaxed rest ego state, because he'd be knackered, or he does the martial arts as well, doesn't he? So he can't be fighting in a romantic state,
that's a very good point.
Yeah, yeah.
Actually,
No.
one other point that he made actually was, I found it very interesting, was that for any job that you have to do, there is an ego state in there that would like to do that job. So just asking all your ego states for the one that likes to do that particular job, I think in his case was to hate doing the dishes. And then one day he just said, I'll try this. And he called for the ego state that loves to do the dishes. And lo and behold, it appeared. And now he used to do the dishes in the wrong ego state. Now he does it with this particular ego state, and he actually finds it very therapeutic. And I actually found it myself. Find it myself now, for example, there's jobs around the house that you may or may not want to do. So, for example, I don't particularly like going shopping or wherever, and I often forget to put out the bins and stuff like that, So the thing is now, it's not a huge deal, but at the same time, it's like, well, okay, these jobs have to be done. So what I did was I created an ego state, which I called quartermaster, which actually in the army or in scouts or whatever, you have somebody who looks after all the gear. And so if gear is broken or it has to be replaced, the quartermaster looks after all of that. So basically now, my quartermaster ego state checks to see what food I need to get in or what bits need to be got, and he's in charge of making sure I go to the shop and get this, And the same then with the housekeeper ego state, just to make sure that any small little jobs around the place are done, and that's it, So actually, I find it very, very useful, and I'm quite sure that it's only the tip of the iceberg for me now,
Yeah, great stuff, Fintan. Because there's another part of it as well. I heard someone saying before, if just say you're kind of not a good listener, or you can butt in on people or whatever, he was saying he found that he had that kind of thing where he kind of talked over people unintentionally, but it happened, So what he did was he asked his ego state, his highest ego state, what he could do, and he said he could make his ears bigger and his mouth smaller, so he wouldn't be talking as much and he'd be listening better. And by doing that, it really worked,
Yeah. I believe you got him dressed up in a suit as well.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Great stuff. Yeah. But you can even use it for the likes of even interviews, if you're nervous going into interviews, or if even for myself, if you're doing a tedious job within your job that you don't like, you can kind of put ways to enjoy it, you can link activities that you enjoy doing, let's say listening to music while you do something, it can all kind of tie in, can't it, Rich?
Absolutely, Mark. Yeah. Use them to the best ability that they are there for, and make your life more enjoyable than what it maybe already is.
Yeah, exactly. Because you were going to bring up another point there, Rich, that Fintan mentioned earlier on.
Sorry, Mark. Fintan briefly spoke about your subconscious there to protect people, and obviously this is just a model. Is there may be an ego state that's been a bit neglected or something for a little while, and it needs to go off and go get some beers in, or go down the pub or wherever and go and get smashed, and have a massive hangover in the morning. And you're like, how did I do that? And you start berating yourself. But you need to be gentle with yourself. You need to be respectful of what your thoughts are going through your head, how you speak to yourself, because you could end up making that ego state worse, where you want to blend and make them more integrated into the system as a whole. And the more function and the better the function of your subconscious, the better you'll be able to live and work and operate in society with everybody else, or the people who aren't maybe as integrated in themselves as what other people are.
Yeah, no, that's a great point, Rich. Great point. Yeah, because as well, I know exactly what you're saying there. Because you know, for instance, it might be a little bit off topic, but do you know if you're drinking a fair bit, like even yesterday I had a good few drinks, you know, and the next day all you're left with the hangover, you know, and like you're kind of beating yourself up about it, but you know, as you say, you don't want to make the ego state worse. You don't, like, it's just it's like I heard before, you know, when you go into if you have a drink problem, like if you know, if you're, just say someone's an alcoholic and you go to an AA meeting and they're like, you know, just admitting yourself you're an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic, can actually have the reverse effect. But where it's a good idea to kind of say, maybe drink a little bit less next time. Like if you could reduce your drinking rather than you know, giving yourself a name. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, you could. Sorry, Fintan. Yeah, you could turn around and say that I'm a non-drinker. I'm a now non-drinker. Do you not maybe as an alcoholic? Or you could turn around and say I'm more of a social drinker now.
Yeah.
I don't know,
Yeah,
your
definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd agree with you there. Because if under human Gibbons theory, the highest level is, you know, your belief level. And if you believe that you are an alcoholic, then it's going to be very hard to shift that belief. It's one of the highest levels that we can hold something at. So to hold it at belief level it can be quite, as you said, have the reverse effect. So as Rich pointed out there, to be a social drinker is a moderate drinker is a much better idea than to abstain completely. After all, when you can't have something, does it make you want it even more? And what if if you consider yourself an alcoholic, you have a drink, so you go, oh, I've fallen off the wagon, so I might as well just go on the, you know, go on the tear. And, you know, as opposed to go, well, I'm a social drinker, I can have a few drinks and leave it there, which would obviously be the ideal scenario for anybody.
Unless obviously you want to give up, then it'd be better to call yourself a non-drinker.
Non-drinker, yeah.
Same as smoking. You're an ex-smoker, you're a non-smoker. And any other substance or whatever it is, maybe negative in the life that person has.
Yeah, exactly, because it kind of ties in as well. Your behaviors, it's not you, it's just your behavior. You know what I mean? You're not saying it's a part of you, it's just something you do. It's not something that you are, you know.
Very good, yeah, that's perfect, yeah, Mark.
Yeah, because you know, it does all tie in together, you know, because there are states that we're all in. It's like you know, happy state is good for anybody that's feeling kind of down, just by even smiling, putting a funny face into the mirror and, you know, look the craziest smile. You can't feel crap when you do that stuff. Sure you can't.
Actually, yeah, one good thing if you want to change your state into a happier state is to get a pencil or a pen and just put it between your teeth, and it forces your mouth into a smile. And actually,
you read my mind, Fintan.
What's that?
You must have read my mind, so I was thinking the same thing.
That's it.
Telepathic during Zoom. Yeah. No, that's great. And even like for the likes of somebody changing their state, like, you know, just getting up and moving, like, you know, moving, changing your position, like, you know, it can be as simple as that, can't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And actually, the thing about the ego states is, right, that once you decide which ego state you want to call in, even if you don't really want to call it in, if you know what I mean, you're feeling really tired and lethargic and you go, I want to go for that walk, but I'd rather stay in bed. But even just calling the ego state in, the active ego state in, can actually cause it to come in, and you will then change your position. As you say, you'll get up from the chair and you start moving around, and as you're starting to move around, then the active one goes, oh, this is me. And next thing you know, you're heading out the door, you know. So it's yeah, as you say, just even, you know, becoming active helps you change state. Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Oh, no, that's great, Fintan. Thanks very much. Yeah, that's explained so well there. And as well as that, Rich, like what I struggled with in the start when I started trying these, was bringing the state to the executive. Like, how would anybody that's going to try this, any listeners going to try this, what advice could you give them to start day one of you know, calling an ego state?
Just as Fintan's been saying all throughout, just ask for that to be present. It may take a while for it to come through, and just notice what sensations are in the body, where they are, where they're located, and just hold that for a minute. Thank it for coming forward, and thank you for being an executive for that time. And then once you finish whatever you're doing, ask another one to come forward. And then just work from there. Some may take a little more to come through, others probably a little bit less because they've been used more often than what, like the ones in the frat house or in the bomb shelter have been using. Yeah,
it's like we've been using all these without even knowing about it. It's just really bringing it from the subconscious, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, that's great. Thanks a million, lads, for coming on and explaining this this great concept, like this great model, really, isn't it? It's like NLP as a model.
Yeah.
You were saying earlier that about the ego states that are there, they're there to protect you.
The whole subconscious is there to protect people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I think that's it's great just to kind of, once you realize that in fact we all think that these things are working against us, but in fact they're there to help us, and it's just a matter of making things more useful, really, isn't that right?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. So really, in a nutshell, is there anything else that you'd like to add about ego states before we finish off today?
There's one other thing, actually. I was thinking that I decided to try as an experiment, and it seems to have worked. So we were saying about the bomb shelter and the vaded or the wounded ego states, and what I found was that I decided to do an experiment, and what I did was I called up my highest wisdom ego state, and I asked it to go down to the bomb shelter and to knock down the wall between the bomb shelter and the rec room, and to let the wounded ego states out into the rec room. Because, as I said, most of those wounded ego states are there from when we were children. And the thing about it is that there's 150 ego states down in the rec room, and I figured that at least one of them would be able to help any one wounded ego state. You know, so you think about it. If you think about something that happened to you as a child when you were like 4 or 5 years of age, it was a big deal at the time. You didn't deal with it, and you've forgotten all about it, or you think you have, but your unconscious still remembers it. But there's an adult version of you down there that knows exactly what to do in that situation with that wounded ego state, to reassure it that in fact everything is okay. That's not a big deal. It's sorted now. And so I said, well, do you know what to do? Go down there and find, if you like, a functional ego state to help each of the wounded ego states. And it actually worked. I immediately could feel the sort of integration between inside myself, almost as if there were different parts coming together and working together, and I automatically started feeling much better, you know. And in fact, I haven't really had any issues with any, you know, with any wounded ego states or anything like that. In fact, I've found that I'm a much more functional person now, just since I started doing this, you know. And that's the big thing for me. Yeah,
that's
brilliant, Fintan, isn't it? That's brilliant.
That's
yeah,
amazing.
Excellent.
Point, yeah,
really good. Yeah. Oh,
That's a
sorry.
really amazing, yeah, that's a really good valid point.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
To,
Great.
as you're saying, is to get those ego states that aren't functioning as well and blend them in with the other ones that are working at a higher level, and to bring them up and develop them and let them grow.
Yeah. Excellent. That's excellent. Yeah, brilliant, Fintan. Thanks very much. And it's just as a little side note as well for anybody with their kids who listen to this who have kids. I think we mentioned before that film Inside Out. They can kind of really give kids a kind of an insight of what ego states really are, because the whole film is basically, it's gone into the child's brain, and you got a happy, you got your sad, you got your angry, all these little players in their head, like, so it's and so it's yeah, it's great. Like, you probably agree with me there with that about that film.
Yeah, I've not watched it, Mark. So I've seen the trailers. I know what you're on about, but yeah, I've not seen the
Yeah,
film.
it's good. Yeah, it's good. Yeah. So you were saying you've seen that film before yourself, Fintan, Inside Out.
Well,
Yeah.
I did go to the cinema to watch it. Actually, we were in Dublin with the Scouts, and at the end of a very long day, we went to the cinema and to watch that movie. And I seem to have, I think, arrested my eyes for a bit of it. And,
Yeah.
I think I became conscious of the movie toward closer to the end, anyway.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So I didn't see the whole of it.
But it's good. It is a good one to watch with the kids, to give them a bit of an understanding of it anyway. Yeah. No, so this has been absolutely great having you on, talking about ego states. Really, really good. And as well as that, we'd like to maybe just talk briefly about the course we're putting together as well around the NLP. We're just in the process of putting it all together, but I'm really excited about it. I know you are as well. Looking forward to getting all the parts of it together, and we're going to do it as a video. All kind of be videos, and it's going to be like Word documents added on as well. So watch the space we're going to be doing. It's going to be great, isn't it?
It's gonna be awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah, be awesome.
Sure, yeah. Basically, I suppose the idea of the course is that it's creating a toolbox for people to use, an NLP toolbox.
Yeah.
For people to use in their everyday lives, to give them skills, to help them understand what's going on. I suppose we're looking at probably the age group from 16 up. And particularly because when you're going through, that kind of time in school and college and that, it's a very difficult time. So you don't have the same life skills as you would when you're older. So to deal with all the issues that come up kind of around that age group would be very useful. So the idea anyway is that we provide a toolbox for people to use so that they can help them get through any challenges that they come across and that sort of thing. So actually, I'm really looking forward to this now. I've come up with some great ideas to help people, and obviously ego states is one of them. We've lots more great ideas to help them as well. And yeah, absolutely delighted. I'm telling you, these skills are skills I definitely would have loved to have when I was that age.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. No, it'd be great. Want to Rich, like to be able to give back and help people, like you say, from 60 and onwards, like, because there's so much great stuff in NLP, isn't there? Like you've got the metal model, the Milton model, Milton model. You've got like the anchor states and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of and as we're doing it, they'll all lead to each other, won't they?
Yeah. And there's also things like circle of excellence and how to get yourself in a good state before you do an exam or before you maybe go for a job interview, that kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it'd be great if we could we could do another podcast or two to kind of let people get a feel for exactly what's going to be in the course. So stay tuned, everybody. We're going to be doing it maybe every couple of weeks, just a different modality of NLP, just to get us familiar with what we'll be doing Does that sound good, lads? Yeah.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. So listen, thanks a million, lads, for coming on today. It's been great. Again, talking about the subject and letting the listeners, hope you've got loads of value out of it, everybody that's listening today. So thanks again, lads.
Thanks very much, Mark, for having us.
Thank you very much, Mark, for having us on, and yeah, see you again soon.
Cheers. So thanks everybody for listening to Mark's Motivational Podcast, Motivational Thursday with Fintan and Rich. So we'll talk to you real soon again. We'll talk to you for another podcast on Sunday. Take care. Thank you. Cheers.